Hey, friend, welcome to this week's episode of Growth Conversations. I'm your host, Ashley Frank, and today I'm so excited to bring a guest onto the show. He is an award winning musician turned storyteller. He is a creator, a mentor, a good friend, and a voice for self love and confidence. He's on a mission to help others believe in themselves and their dreams. And even though he says that he's turned into a storyteller, I tend to believe that he's a storyteller from the start. And I think you'll get that vibe during today's episode. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Keonté Beals. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Keonté.
Yeah, thank you for having me. What's up, everybody? I appreciate being here. Of course, you having me, and I look forward to the conversations.
It's a pleasure having you here, Keonté. Just for a little bit of context, I met Keonté about a year ago through a mutual connection, and we all met at IKEA for coffee one morning. And I was immediately captivated by Keonté's story and for the passion for the work that he does. So, Keonté, just to get us started, maybe you can give us a little background and set the stage on where you're from and what brought us to this point of conversation today.
I am the owner of K Beals Entertainment, which is my publishing and touring company, and it's pretty much centered around like storytelling, so giving a voice to people who may not have always been heard. And so for me, I feel like that's been my journey since before I can remember. But I can remember being 6 years old and starting this journey of just storytelling and doing it in different forms, like of course children's books like I do today, but also with music, with comic books and novels. I would do all those different things when I was a little bit younger, and they all seem to center around the same message, which is like self-empowerment. Like, how do you actually control like some of your life in regards to the choices you make, and being able to retain your power because you make the choice to focus on the response instead of what might be coming externally. So for me, when I look back over like my life in general, and I grew up in North Preston, I just think about like some of those stories and how they really influenced like the man that I am today. And so yeah, I'm excited to just be able to share some of those stories and hopefully, be able to help somebody else along the way.
I love that you just mentioned this whole concept of helping people tell their stories when they may not have always been heard. Help us understand where that started for you.
Not feeling heard, honestly. Like, you know, like I was a really, really shy kid, really timid. Like I didn't say much most of the time, just by choice. I felt like I learned more when I just listened to people. And so I wasn't heard by choice in a lot of cases, but I do feel like in some ways, like when I would voice my opinion and speak, people wouldn't hear what I had to say. And especially, as I started to grow, I grew up in North Preston, as I mentioned, and I went to Nelson Winder Elementary School, which is, I think, the only all black school here in Nova Scotia, maybe even Canada too. But I can remember making the transition from going from one school that was all black, where they taught us all about like our values, how we used to be kings and queens, and they empowered us to go into junior high school and being introduced to so many more other cultures, but that was also to like other stigmas about like who I am and my people, and especially coming from North Preston, like, oh my God, people were just like, ooh, we might want to look out for that one. And so they took away my voice in that regard, and they didn't give me the opportunity to say, actually, here I am, I'm Keonté, I believe in this, that, I appreciate this, ain't perfect, but I have a story to tell, and I think it could be important for all of us. So for me, it was just all about just giving people that voice, like their own voice, not telling their story, right, and not shaping their story around my perspective, but just giving them their voice and letting them speak on their story. And I feel like I've just kind of started with myself as an author and musician and storyteller. So it's been a hell of a ride.
You mentioned your hometown of North Preston. Maybe you can give the audience a little bit of background on your upbringing in the community and how that has shaped you into the person you are today.
Yeah, growing up in North Preston was just amazing. I mean, it was just fantastic. Like it was just filled with respect, and like the way we used to just have such a sense of community. and you know, like the opportunity to learn and to grow by actually being outside playing, you know, falling from trees, making mud pies, doing all those different things that a lot of us done, you know, during those times. But it was so nice to be able to do it with you know, like a community that had so much respect for one another, and just being able to like soak in some of the values there too, and like what we've come from, and how we've taken what we were given or given, and made other things into them, and was able to birth, you know, so much more from it. So for me, it was definitely just a lot of love. Of course, nothing's perfect, and so we got to learn from those imperfections too.
It sounds like you had some really great memories growing up that definitely shaped you. And I know that you and I have had conversations of many other good memories that we could probably highlight. But there was that moment when you transitioned between schools, and I know that was a big change for you, and a lot of things came up during that time. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that journey with us?
Going from one to the other was definitely an interesting transition because I up until that point I had never heard anyone call me the N word before. I had never heard like some of the racial slurs that people eventually would call me and some of my other friends in some of those schools. Like I never heard any of those derogatory terms coming from people like from a place of hate. Like I was aware that they existed, but not in the context that I was now experiencing at that age. And I was, you know, going into grade six. So I was only about like 12 years old. So you're processing all that, right? And what comes up is anger, right? You got to defend yourself, you got to fight. And so that taught me a lot too, when it comes to like everything that I mentioned at the beginning of just like owning your response. And that is where your power is, because you didn't have to respond in a way that would feed the fire. And I learned that at a very, very young age. It's like I have a choice right now. Like I could go ahead and you know, let loose and do what I got to do or feel like I had to do.
Mhm.
And sometimes I did. But you know, like that, I can also make the choice to think and be like, maybe it's them. Like
Mhm.
what in me makes me feel like it's me that has the issue here? What if it's just them?
Man, that's a lot to experience at 12 years old. And I'm so sorry that you went through that and experienced that. But at the same time, you have chosen to use that adversity to your advantage and share with others and empower others. We're all faced with these forks in the road at multiple times in their lives. And I'm interested to know what influenced you choosing the direction of using that experience for the better.
I think I credit it all to like just the values that I was taught in general, like growing up, like the family and the specifics of you know, like certain people in my village. They were really really different type of folks than some of the other people that I may have experienced. And they were focused on growth. Like they were focused on, oh, what's actually outside of my community, you know, how to actually grow from those things. Like, where does those different experiences take me that, you know, some of the other people in our community may have been, you know, kind of hesitant on, and how can that grow? My grandmother in particular, I talk about my grandmothers a lot in different forms, so people might get confused on who I'm talking about, but I'm I'm talking about my grandmother Rose, and she taught me so much. I can remember being like 3 years old and being able to fluently write in cursive and being really organized and like structured and all those different things, and those values I still carry today. But like just being able to, I think, develop the mindset of not doing what everyone else might do
Mhm.
made me curious where that might lead. And so, where I could have balled up my fist and punched somebody in the face, and sometimes I did, sorry, I did. What would actually happen if I did the opposite of that? Like, what would happen if I made that choice? And what would happen if I made the choice to, instead of feeling some of the ways that people would put on me, from their own view and perception, if I actually decided to think of myself as higher than that? What would happen? Like, where would that take me? That was the transition for me, is challenging myself. And I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. I didn't know, these aren't the words that I would be using then, but I was just so curious to know what would be that other side, and where that would take me. And I can remember actually, one of the parents in my community, I got into a a little bit of a heated moment with one of their kids. And I can remember leaving their place and slamming the door after I told this person everything I needed to tell them. Okay. And I can remember them calling my parents and being like, oh, da, da, da. And I was like, my parents said, you got to go and apologize. So I did. I went up there, apologized for slamming the door and whatever. But they gave me the opportunity to say why I did that. And when they did that, they said, you know what, Keonté, you are working, you are growing, you are budding into, a young man who is clearly intentional about your choices and what you want to do. You're about to embark on this journey of music and being in the music industry. One thing you have to do is be mindful of your actions and your choices and know that they come with consequences. So yes, somebody might make you upset, and in an industry like that, they will.
Mhm.
They're like, but you don't need to respond in that interaction in a way that fuels the fire, because your name is going to be the most important thing that you carry throughout your whole career. They said that to me and I never forgot it. To this day, it's a thought in my mind when I think of cussing somebody out or getting to a moment where, I'm like, no, we got to make sure that we focus. So yeah, it was a lot of different I guess ways of me getting to this place, right? It's the village, I think.
It sounds like community and some key people and values had a lot of influence in your upbringing and who you are today. And also Grandma Rose for getting you into cursive writing at such a young age. From the first time that I met you, I knew that you were a creative individual. Can you take us back to your earliest memories of being creative and how you just evolved that throughout your life?
Literally, like, since I was, as far as any memories can go, I think, like, I can remember slightly, like, being 3 years old, and like just some of the memories then. But yeah, just being like really imaginative and like expressive in my imagination, like not out loud, but in my mind. And I guess in some ways I showed that externally too. Like I can remember like some of my aunts and uncles and even my mom finding me. I have a huge family on both sides of my family, both sides. And I can remember us having these big reunions. Okay, there's literally so many people, and my parents and aunts and uncles, they would find me alone in a corner somewhere or under a tree outside, and I would have a leaf in one hand and I would have a stick in the other hand. One was Batman, one was Superman, and they were going for it in my mind. And so there was this whole storyline to that, right? And this person did this to someone's family, and they absorbed that power, and now whatever. Just telling a whole story with this leaf and the stick. And they were fine me and they were like, Keonté, why are you here alone? Why are you whatever? And I'm like, I'm playing with my stuff. They're like, you have a leaf and a stick. What's going on? And I'd be like, well, this is Batman, Superman. And they'd be like, all right, honey, okay. And they'd be like, come on over here with the rest of the kids type thing. So like I've always had like this thing of just being, I think, in my own mind and not being afraid of what's in there, and just like allowing myself to think all of these thoughts of the world around me, but also like the world that didn't exist either, and how I could create like that world, and what it would take for me to get there too. Like, and not just that, but also what it would take for other people to see it, like to see that this leaf is definitely Batman and this stick is definitely Superman. Like, can't you see this? So like, what is it going to take to get there? And So it's been my whole life of just like building this world in my mind and observing like the world around me and taking bits and pieces of that and then creating this other element in my head that I could eventually, put out there and for people to be able to see. So I think those creative juices and like the permission that I gave myself maybe at a young age allowed me to be really, really a big dreamer. And I think that is a skill that can be built. It's not something that you're born with. You build that skill, right? You're only limited by your own mind. And especially in this world of AI, like the only thing stopping you now is yourself. Like you can imagine anything and it can come true.
What a gift to have people in your life who will allow that creativity to shine. Even when you're playing with a stick and a leaf, they still kind of looked at you and went, "You go for it, kid." And you weren't discouraged. Too often, I think the creativity and the imagination is kind of pushed out of us as we grow up, whether that's through the people that we're around or through school. Yet, you've talked about how creativity was actually a key part of education in school for you.
School was interesting. I was always somebody who, of course, like excelled in the creative arts, visually, music, all of them except for like drama and acting because I was just way too shy to go and really allow myself to be expressive. But I can remember like being really like focused and like when my younger ages, I should say, in my younger ages being really focused, and then when I got to like junior high and high school, that's when I started to really be like, you know what? I know what I'm gonna do. I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. Nobody else does or did at that time, but I know what I'm gonna do. And so I'm just gonna focus in like the spaces that I really, really love and then figure out how I can make my way through the other things so that I can do the things that I love. And I can remember a particular moment in just grade five was probably the moment that sparked this whole thing. It was almost like validation, I guess, that the things that were in my mind were creative and unique. Can remember Miss Tyne Simon. She's a teacher. She was my grade five teacher at the time, and I can remember her being the one to tell me that your writing is really gifted, like in your age. Like it's so mature. The things that you're saying that I'm reading on this paper is really mature for your age. You have a really talented gift for writing. And I could remember going home that day and thinking about it all day long. Like, she said I had a gift for writing. Well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean, I don't know? And so that started like this journey and she helped me to cultivate that writing. I mean, she was on me about it, like just teaching me, how to like make the words matter. And maybe that was like where the birth of just being like a words of affirmation guy kind of started. I don't know, but you just drove it in my head about the words mattering in every situation, in communication and storytelling and getting somebody to understand. And so yeah, when it comes to like the creative and just being in school and stuff like that, a lot of my creativity fueled those things. I don't think if I was given like the permission and the validation to be creative, that it would have even just opened my mind up to other possibilities in school. Like I would take these courses that nobody was really looking to take. Like none of my friends, they're like, "Why are you taking that course? Why are you taking this?" It's like because I feel like it might be something in there that might be, that I can use for my creativity purposes. Like I could go. I went into video production at that time. I wasn't worried about no video production, but if I tell you how much that influences today for me and like how I actually maneuver like through different things and can see like bigger pictures visually, it's like who would have known? So anyways, it just influenced like a lot of my choices in school for sure, definitely.
This hits really close to home because I also took a lot of those creative classes that at the time people were like, "What's that going to do for you for university?" I didn't know at the time, but those skills and the things that I learned through those creative classes carry through with me today. It also sounds like having somebody to believe in you during that time and who could encourage you during that time played a big role in your development and even into the work that you do now. What did that look like for you?
Very powerful. Yeah, for someone to just believe in you is yeah,
Would you say that having people who believed in you has shaped you into the person you are today?
1000%. 1000%. I've had like so many people along my journey like just believe in my art, the things I had to say, like just the work ethic too. And they would point it out like very early on, like just being a younger kid, they would point out the fact that they felt like my energy was different in that way. And I think like that made me aware and kind of made me own it, because a lot of the times I would feel that way anyway when nobody mentioned it, and it would be a negative thought, right? Like it would be like, I don't know why I feel, this way. And everyone I think feels that way, if you like learn to embrace, because it's true. We all have like these special gifts and talents and stuff, and they just live there until we bring them to life. And so, yeah, I would say like at each point I can remember, like I call them guardian angels today. They know that too. But certain people in my life would come and pour into, the gifts and my journey. And a lot of them actually were women who would really like come in, and I think that I got like such an overall perspective and view from the fact that a lot of them were women, because I got to really like understand like effective communication and just like the way like women's minds think, which to me I just feel like is so different and complex and more understanding and like caring and nurturing. Like it's just such a different way of doing it. And now that I look at everything today, even today, the women in my life, but when I look back over my journey, it's like, oh my God, like that probably influenced the way that I make decisions, the way that I choose to like handle folks in my life, like just being able to have the natural, way that my mind thinks as a man, and then to have like that perspective that a woman has to offer, which I do think there are differences. I mean, there's, but just to have like that well-rounded picture, I think can sometimes serve me well. And so, yeah, there's been like a lot of mentors along the way who said, I believe in this. You have a big voice, you should use it. Because there are many times that, of course, I done doubted myself along the journey. It happens. So, yeah, I appreciated
So,
that belief.
somebody just saying, I believe in you
Yeah.
can spark an entire journey for somebody. I believe in that. It's one of my sayings is I believe in you because you never know what somebody's potential is, but somebody looking at you and saying you can do this can go a long way.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, so many situations where I'm able to do that for kids now, and you can just see their little hearts just light up. Like that's all they needed, just to go and pursue, this art class or just to keep writing or whatever. Yeah.
You used a word earlier to describe a younger version of yourself, and that word was shy. Now, the Keonté that I know, you don't come off as shy. Humble, absolutely, but shy is not the word that I would use to describe you. What changed from that shy version that allowed you to start producing music and now speaking on stage?
Yeah, I used to call myself a hidden singer because no one knew that I could sing until I was like maybe 13, 14. It's like, no, I can sing. I can sing. And I remember like one of my cousins catching me at like 8 years old. Man, I was in there singing my heart out to some gospel tune in the car. He came around the corner. He's like, "Was that you?" I'm like, "Nope, wasn't me. I don't know who you talking about." He's like, "No, that was you." But I can remember like being 13, 14 years old and eventually putting like a video. Facebook had just started popping at the time. And so I put a video on Facebook of me singing because my sister forced me to do so. I'm glad she did. But I can remember like hearing the response and stuff, and even like the feedback and stuff, and how that really like shaped just my thinking of like, oh, I really want to practice this skill. and just kind of stuff like that. But just over like the time in the career, like when I look back over my life in general and just like where I've ended up, I see like so many lessons that taught me how to be able to show up in the way that I do now. Like it was a lot of just like confidence and trust and showing up for myself and still going into those rooms even when I was so shy and so nervous. Bro, I would show up to some of these meetings and stuff and just conferences like for Music of Scotia and all these things. And when I tell you, I would be in the room in my head like, Keontae, we are about to drop dead and faint right now. You better get out of this room before you are just no longer in existence. And I would be sweating. I'd be shaking. That's how nervous I was. Like just talking to these people, I'm like, I know these people probably are thinking at the time, I'm like, they're probably thinking this guy is an idiot. This guy is a weirdo. This guy is whatever. Now that I look on it, actually, like a lot of them were really caring and really like patient with me because they could tell that I was nervous. And, but yeah, it was just like a lot of that showing up and each time I showed up for myself, even though I was nervous, I built like another layer of trust to just be like, listen, it doesn't matter. Like we are nervous and we still showed up for that. And like look what came up look what came out of that opportunity. Like we now are gonna be performing on this show or we had this opportunity to even observe and learn from this lesson where it may not have went the way that I wanted it to go. And so like just being able to commit, I think, to like to growing and to chasing this thing has like led me to this point of being, definitely not a shy person anymore. But still kind of like carrying those values of why I think I was shy at that time and why people are can be shy is because, they don't have they don't kind of give themselves like that outlet to express and to know and to be confident in what they bring to the table. And so like I still carry those values of just kind of like that little boy, like the little Keontae who may have felt that at that time, but like it's the opposite now of like it's turned into like just being humble over the fact that I know, what I deserve and I know, what I bring to the table versus like being shy. So it just kind of flipped a little bit and I can own it a little more. But it took obviously a lot of years to get to there and I'm still growing, right? Because it's a forever commitment. You constantly growing and changing. And so you got to recommit every time you get into those spaces. But yeah, it was a transition for me. I can remember somebody mentioning to my parents, like, it's a good thing that he isn't going the route of trying to find like a record label or like he no manager or whatever, like I didn't have any mentorship just hovering, like I had just people in my life. And they're like, it's actually a good thing that he's doing that because he's learning how to talk to different people, different spaces in the corporate space, creative, whatever. And I didn't know that at the time, but now that I'm looking at it, it's like giving me such a perspective of just how to talk to different people in different perspectives and different backgrounds and circumstances, different job positions and different status. And it's giving me like a well-rounded view of being able to do that and relate to everybody. But just because I know that beyond all of those positions, like we all have those core values and there's only a few of them. So we can all connect in some sort of way on one of those values. And that is where, we find commonality in just humanity.
Powerful. So, so powerful. One of the things that catches my interest with your entire journey is how you're so much more than one thing, right? You started and you produced music, and then you wrote and you've published a series of children's books, and then you spoke inside of schools and teams of educators, and now you're starting to speak in front of corporate events. And for so many people, they get hooked in on one thing, but you haven't allowed one thing to define you as a brand, and your brand continues to evolve. Can you give us some insight into how you're building your brand and what's working for you?
Yeah, so producing music to writing and publishing books. It was actually reversed. I used to, well, I used to write the books first and then go into music, but but the actual, like you're saying, professional publishing of the books themselves was really a full circle moment. I can remember like one of those guardian angels of mine, Tamar Pryor Brown, who was my manager at that time, still a very beautiful friend of mine. She was like, Key, don't you write? And you write. Everyone calls me Key. But don't you write do your own stories and stuff? I'm like, yeah. We were on our way to a festival. She was like, have you ever thought about like publishing them and putting them out there? I was like, I did. I'm like, I have so much going on with music. When would I ever get the chance? She's like, well, I think we should just dedicate some time to that. So I spent 2018 to 2020 built. That's how long it took to do the first one. Just building this book, and I did it with my younger brother Antonio, and that was I'm Perfectly Me, and it just kind of sparked this whole journey. But I can remember like just being in I took music arts at NSCC Ivany campus here in Nova Scotia, and I can remember like having a conversation about Classified. I don't know if you all know about Classified, but he is definitely a legend here at this point, I would say, in the music world, hip hop world. I would even say like as an entrepreneur in business in the creative space. And we were learning about him in one of the music business classes, and we were just talking about how nobody took him on, none of the record labels and whatever. And he was like, forget it, I'm gonna do it on my own. And so he went out there, and at the time he made like $20,000 to $30,000 on the road by himself, doing it himself and putting it together. And all these record labels was like, who is this guy? What is he doing? He's coming in, taking in all the venue space and doing all this stuff. And he's like, yep, it's me owning my own company, doing it my own way. And so once I learned that lesson, I was just like, I would love to do that, like to just own my own stuff and have my own creative outlet and be able to do what I wanted to do creatively and not have anybody direct any of that for me, but just to be able to move off of what I felt. And so, like a lot of these things you mentioned, yeah, a lot of it like just kind of stemmed from not giving myself those boundaries and trying. I tried a lot of stuff. I did like apparel. I did so many different things, just throwing things at the wall to figure it all out. But yeah, it's been a journey, and it really doesn't stop. There are new things I'm figuring it out, but I think I'm more focused on what my message and what I have is now, and that changes everything for me because now I can approach everything from that perspective, and it's always been that, but I just know it now. I'm aware.
Keontae, what do you think holds most people back from having the courage to just try things?
I think a lot of it is just, themselves, like the thinking, like you can only think in the same like vicinity as the people you're around. So like maybe changing your circle. Like for me, people didn't start believing until I started to get out there myself and show people like this is something that I feel like I actually have to offer to, or like at least that I'm interested in, right? And if you go into those directions in those places, that's where you'll find like people who point out some of those gifts. So like if I like art, I'm probably gonna go to an art class, and people will point out like those things there because they have an eye for it, and those things go a long way, just pointing out some of the smaller things. And so for me, that's exactly what it was. Like I grew up in the church, but I was like the church mouse until I wasn't. Like I was just chilling until I decided to join, the youth choir. And that's where I started to sing a little bit. And somebody said, oh, you can actually really sing. That's where it started for me because I'm like, maybe I can. Maybe other people will think so too. Maybe I can actually make people feel something from singing, from doing this thing. Oh, maybe I can release an album. Maybe I can play the piano. So it just started to lead into all these different things from that one, comment and compliment. So I just would say, like, my advice in that sense would be like to get outside of your circle, like to surround yourself with things that you love. And I think it's so much easier to do that today because there's so many options out there. So many options out there, even just uploading something to online and being able to see, some of those comments will go a long way. But you gotta that starts with yourself. You gotta push yourself to do it. But there's a there's an audience for everyone out there.
Powerful advice. Thank you for sharing that with us. Your whole message, Keontae, is around self love, self acceptance, and confidence. And this is a message that you've been building on and you're getting more clarity on. You've spoken in front of groups of students and educators. You have a series of books, as we mentioned, and now you're expanding into the corporate world, speaking with teams and going into working with organizations. I'm curious to know why that topic of self love and self acceptance is so important to you and what your hope is to do with this message for the world.
Yeah, so that's definitely like a deep story. For me, all of it started when I was very, very young, and I faced like a lot of mental, physical, emotional, like psychological, just abuse in general, and it was difficult for me to sometimes take what I was experiencing in that way and separate it from who I was learning of myself to be. And so sometimes you take those things and you put them on yourself and you say, well, maybe what's being said here in this space, especially when you're a kid, but in this space is making me feel like this is probably my identity. And in a lot of cases, there are moments where you really do believe that and you carry it wholeheartedly. Like I could remember when I was 12 years old when it all really just kind of just bubbled over, and I took my mom into my room and I was just like, there's things already happening, and I was just like, Mom, I don't feel like safe here. I don't feel good like about being here. Like I don't love myself. I don't feel like energy that I feel like I should. And I told her that I did want to, not be here anymore and to kill myself, to commit suicide. And I can remember her being just kind of stunned by the fact that I said it. And she began to cry. And as she began to cry, I started to cry. She pulled me in and she was like, something has to change. We have to do I have to do something. I can't allow this to happen anymore here. And I can remember feeling at that moment, oh my God, yes, finally things are gonna change. I'm gonna, feel different. She's gonna make this choice. The next day came and things went right back to, where they had been for forever. Nothing changed. It was from that moment that I don't know what it was. I still don't to this day. And I'm a spiritual guy, so I could easily be like, I feel like it was a calling on my life the whole time for God to put in my mind that if I don't do something for myself here in this moment, that I'm not going to be able to live out these dreams and these thoughts that I had in my mind and that I needed to pour into myself. Now, along that journey, it was very, very, different because it started out me thinking of how I can almost like manipulate a situation to make it work out for everybody. And a lot of that led to, it not working out for me and people pleasing and stuff like that. But it was just a lot of like the journey of just figuring it out. And I thought once I got older, that wow, what a beautiful way to leave a legacy and to be able to pour back into the community by just kind of teaching people what that actually looks like. Like people say it all the time. Love yourself, love yourself. You just got to love yourself, but they don't talk about the grace that you got to apply along the journey. They don't talk about the fact that you're going to wake up some days and not feel like doing that. You're going to wake up some days and you're going to feel the weight of the world because it can be heavy sometimes. They don't talk about all those different things. They also don't tell you about the little steps that you got to take on a daily, hourly, minutely. Like you guys gotta take like just like so many increment like just smaller steps to get to like this bigger picture of like this is what it looks like to show up for myself on a daily basis. And so that's what I've kind of taken and just built into the space of like of course, the children's books, but also now into like corporate too, and how those things actually work when it comes to, like team building and stuff like that, and holding yourself accountable to, as a leader and as a person, because nobody's perfect. But I think if you, have the mindset to grow and to improve yourself, those things trickle down into the people that you surround yourself to work with. So, yeah.
I'm very glad that you were brave at 12 years old for being able to pull your mom aside and let her know how you were feeling. And the fact that your mom heard you is quite powerful as well. I believe that there's so many people out there who are not heard today, and sometimes just letting others know is part of the journey of moving forward. And the fact that you're using that experience from when you were very young to empower people today is quite inspiring. In an ideal world, Keontae, where there is more self-love and self-acceptance, what does that world look like for you?
Oh my goodness, so many different things. I think when people feel good about themselves and accept like themselves for who they actually are, then it leaves so much room for you to be able to accept other people for who they are, and be able to respect it. You may not always agree. It might not be something that, works or vibes well with you, but you can respect it because you want the same thing. You want to be respected and to be heard and to, just have a mutual thing going on. And so when people value themselves, so many things change, right? The first one, just like I mentioned about the respect for others, but also like the respect for yourself and your choices too, right? They affect your choices in so many different cases, because you're not going to choose something that is gonna just take some of the things that you see in your mind that you want for yourself and appreciate for yourself. You're not gonna allow like some of the choices that we may make to steer you away from those things. Like even just looking at like what I'm doing now, and some people will be like, "Oh, you're so disciplined, you're so this, you're so that," whatever the case may be. Like how do you get there? And it's like, because I have so many things in my mind that I want to do, and like if I make this choice to go here and do this thing, that jeopardizes everything that I see in my mind for myself. So like I have respect for my dreams and my goals. Like and sometimes like just being human, we all have our moments of the flesh, I call it, where we just want to do what we want to do, whether that is drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever, you name it, right? Bad decisions and bad choices because you want to be petty, stuff like that. Like we all have those moments, but I think like loving yourself enough to respect yourself and to know that everything has consequences. You just gotta like make a choice. You'd be making the choice to not choose those things. And so for me, that's what it looks like. If people love themselves, then it leaves room for them to also love and respect other people unconditionally, to have boundaries, to all these things. So it just leads to so much, but it does start with yourself. Like you got to feel that for yourself. How can you feel that for someone else if you don't even feel that for yourself? I don't understand that. It just, to me, it's impossible to do.
Man, this is good stuff. And we know that when people are more accepting of themselves and have love for themselves, that it not only changes them, but it changes the people around them, which in turn changes the world. And this has impact far beyond individuals. This reaches into corporations and into communities. The journey of discovering self-love and acceptance is not an easy one. And if somebody were listening to this episode today, what would be three things that you recommend to get them started on this journey?
Three,
Three.
three things. First thing I would say is be committed to every version of yourself over your lifetime, because it's going to change. You're going to change, you're going to grow. Things you like now, you might not like then. And be committed to the hard transition of, or just between, those different changes and moments in your life. That would be number one, because you got to recommit to it. Okay. Sometimes on a daily basis when you're in it. but just to commit to that, the different parts of you in your life. That's number one. Number two would be sometimes you don't need the opportunity to sit, and we hear this one a lot, but to sit at people's table. I think we hear it a lot and people don't really talk about like what that means. Like you really do have the opportunity to create your own table and what that looks like. And when you do something like that, you gotta understand how you need to show up in it, and commit to the fact that you're saying, I'm going to create this table. I am accepting the journey. I'm accepting the difficult parts of it. I'm accepting how I might treat myself sometimes in it, and that might not always be great. Give myself grace. Like you, there's so much that comes with something like that. So when it comes to building your own table and not allowing other people to kind of dictate like what happens next for you, I would say to just commit to building your own table and what that means. And then the last thing that I would say is that all things are possible. So choose your possibilities.
That is definitely a mic drop moment and a few great words of wisdom. I can't believe we chatted for almost an hour. Quite sure that we could stay here for 8 hours, but that would be a little bit extreme. As we begin to wrap up, what's something that has you excited right now?
What is something that has me excited right now? I feel like I'm going through one of those transitions of change in my life right now, and it is very very exciting. It actually excites me. I'm used to the process of it now, and so it's really interesting to just kind of see who I am becoming, and how everything that I've been through right up until now has influenced like some of my decisions right now. I'm excited about what this new transition is gonna do for me mentally, and for my business, and for my community, and like the impact that I'm trying to make here. It's very difficult going through it, but I really, really, really love the process of it, because I know what is supposed to be on the other end, and I know that it's working in my favor and for my good. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm so excited about it. Like what comes from it.
I'm excited for whatever you have on the horizon and the fact that you're growing. That is really exciting as well. And I'm totally for it and here to support you however I can. What is one thing that you may have viewed as failure in the past that looking back on it, you now see as a critical part of who you've become today?
Ooh, geez, my goodness, so many of them. I would say, I would say, thinking that I would say like my own thoughts of what was happening around me, and thinking that it was me. I would say like I looked at that as a failure, and now like I realize that I had and still have the mindset to look at myself, and like evaluate myself, and say, this is how I showed up in this situation. That is a gift. Like that is something that a lot of people don't even do. They don't even look at themselves and say, was I wrong in this? Like, did I maybe say something, that wasn't the greatest? Did I not, show up in this way, or whatever the case may be? So I would say, like, before I used to look at that as a failure. And then I grew up and realized the definition of narcissist, and how people actually, a lot of people don't, like review just kind of how they show up, and like have emotions towards how they might make people feel, and themselves feel. So I would forgive myself like for those thoughts. I would say like now, that was probably like the biggest thing I could have done for myself, is like continuously be evaluating, how I showed up. It showed like a lot of care, I think, in everything that I've done and do on a daily basis.
You're really speaking to one of the core elements of self-love and trust. It's that ability to carry all of those experiences and pieces forward with us and hold them, right? While continuing to learn and evolve, whether they're pieces that we're proud of or pieces that we're not proud of. It's important that we learn how to hold those and carry them forward into the person that we're becoming. And I appreciate you touching on one of those core elements.
Yeah, man, and I think like a lot of the times too, like we'll look at certain situations and we'll be like, well, like maybe I caused like this person in my life to treat me this way or to, maybe whatever. Like, and it's just like sometimes you really do got to give yourself permission to be like, well, why do I think it's me? Why can't it just be them and whatever they're dealing with in general that is overflowing? Because like what, and have you done like in a certain situation, especially, so it's just stuff like that that I think you just have to forgive yourself like for like some of the thoughts that you think even just on a daily basis about everything and anything. Like sometimes you're gonna have to really just forgive yourself for the thoughts that you had about yourself in that moment, or the thoughts that you had about someone that you love and you were just in your head about something and you're like, oh no, they did this to. It's like, no, how about we forgive ourselves for having that thought and think a little bit higher of them and this person in your life? Like, would they really do that?
Keonté, if somebody's listening to this episode today and they want to learn more about you or connect with you, where should we send them?
I would send them to keontebeals.com, and I would send them to Instagram at Keonté Beals.
That is perfect. And if you didn't have a chance to jot that down or search it on your phone, that's okay. I will have the website and his Instagram in the show notes for easy access. And Keonté, I want to thank you for spending an hour on Growth Conversations today and sharing your story. I know that there's people out there who are needing to hear this message right now, and your wisdom and inspiration is much appreciated. And let's make sure that we grab a coffee in the near future.
Yes, real soon. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.